everyone, and welcome to this week's Fun Friday. So our theme for this week is space, which I find super exciting because I find all things to do with space really fascinating. Like, I love space. And for today's video, we're actually going to do a bit of an experiment. So I saw this online, and it's called the Fizzy moon rock experiment. And I just thought it sounded really interesting. And so you basically make little moon rocks that look like they're from the moon. And then when you add a super special ingredient that's not actually that special, they fizz. So kind of like a bath bomb. So we are going to do that today. Let me get into it and I'll show you exactly what you need and how to make your very own Fizzy moon rock experiment. Okay, so to do your very own Fizzy moon rock experiment, you are going to need a mixing bowl, some baking soda, bicarbonate of soda, that kind of soda, some water. You don't need too much, so a little bit of water, some food dye if you want to dye your moon rocks, but you have to bear in mind that baking soda is obviously white, so they won't necessarily come out perfect like the colour that you want them to, but a little bit of dye is quite fun. And then some spoons for mixing things. Okay, so the first step is to take your baking soda and to just pop it in. With this, there's no real set amount that you have to use. You can use as much or as little as you like. Obviously, the more you use, the more moon rocks you'll have. So I used, when I practiced this, I used 1 cup of baking soda, which is about 128 grams, and it made 6 moon rocks. So obviously work that out as you want to, but I'm just going to put the rest of it in and we'll see what happens. You then need to take your water and add some coloured dye to it if you want to colour your moon rocks, that is. I've already added mine, so I'm now going to give it a quick stir. All done. And then I'm going to add it into the baking soda. But you need to add a tiny little bit at a time because you don't want it to be too wet. So I put red food dye in there and it's come out grey and I'm so confused. But that's fine because the moon's kind of grey anyway, so we'll go with it. So already the texture of this is already close to what I need it to be. So effectively you are looking for the kind of texture of a snowball. So it's quite crumbly, but then you can push it together to make it into a snowball. So I'm going to add a tiny bit more water, and I think that's all I'm going to need. Okay, so the texture of my moon rocks is now ready. So what you can do is just grab a little handful, it doesn't have to be a big one, and just sort of squeeze it into whatever shape you want your moon rocks to be. I don't think moon rocks actually have a set shape, like real legitimate moon rocks, but I'm going to make mine kind of round, I think. And I'm going to pop some on here. So now that the moon rocks are all done, you actually need to put them in the freezer. So I'm going to pop these down to the kitchen now and put them in the freezer. You usually only have to put them in for 30 minutes, but I left mine in overnight and they were absolutely fine when I came to use them today. So just go and put them in your freezer for either 30 minutes or an hour or even overnight. It is completely up to you. So I actually forgot to say at the start that you're also going to need some vinegar to pour onto your moon rocks when they are ready to come out of the freezer. So while you pop them in there and let them freeze, get your vinegar ready. So my moon rocks are ready. I've just taken some distilled white vinegar and popped it into a jug to make it easier to pour in. But we're now going to see what happens to our moon rocks when we add the vinegar. Can you see them fizzing? They're like real moon rocks from the moon. listen super carefully, you can hear them all fizzing too. Should we see what happens if we add a little bit more? We'll see what happens if we add a bit more. The only not so cool thing about this experiment is the smell. The vinegar really, really smells, but it looks really cool. How cool was that? Like, they were like little mini bath bombs. The only thing I didn't like was the smell, but they looked so cool. I just love it. I love things like that. I really hope that you've enjoyed this week's Fun Friday video as a part of Space Week. Next week our theme is fairy tales, so join us then for some more fun activities all around fairy tales. So I'll see you again soon, guys. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.